Submariners never expected to enter strange portals during routine patrols. Yet in the darkest corners of naval archives, that is exactly what some crews quietly claimed. A steel cylinder slides beneath the surface, somewhere in the late Cold War. No landmarks, no horizon, only depth. Sonar screens glow dim green. The air is heavy with recycled breath and unspoken fear. Outside the hull, more than 80% of the world's oceans remain unmapped in detail. A black wilderness even admirals don't fully understand. On this patrol, everything seems normal. The submarine runs silent, engines humming at a steady, familiar rhythm. Then, over a span of less than 4 minutes, 3 things happen that should not happen together. The water temperature spikes in a narrow, invisible band. The compass swings 10 degrees off course with no magnetic explanation. And sonar watches an object the size of a small ship vanish. Not drift away, not fade, just disappear from the screen as if it stepped through a door when the patrol ends. The official report calls it an instrument anomaly. The crew never uses the word portal on record, but off the books, in mess halls and late-night bars, they do. And one officer insists something else crossed that threshold with them and never fully left. The patrol that should have been ordinarily called it a textbook run. The kind every submariner trusted to break the long monotony of deployment. A routine patrol, steady bearings, predictable waters. Nothing that demanded heroism, improvisation, or sleepless nights. The kind of mission no one remembers afterward unless something goes wrong. And on this patrol, something did. Not loudly, not suddenly, but in a quiet, creeping way that would haunt every man who lived through it. The submarine slipped beneath the surface before dawn, leaving behind a sky that still held the last stars. The world above vanished in seconds, replaced by the familiar hum of machinery and the low metallic groan of pressure against the hull. Inside, the air was dense with engine heat and the smell of oil. Officers walked with the practiced calm of men who understood silence was survival. Below periscope depth, noise was an enemy. Even footsteps felt louder. Lieutenant Armin Hale stood at the navigation station, watching the numbers shift with mechanical precision. He had served 7 years without incident. He relied on the ocean to behave exactly as physics dictated. That morning, it did. Depth stable, heading clean, currents predictable. The crew's confidence matched the instruments, but confidence on a submarine is fragile. It can shatter with a single unreadable blip. For the first 20 hours, the run unfolded like every previous patrol. Meals were taken in brief rotations. Conversations were clipped to conserve breath and energy. Sonar operator Riley Ortiz tapped pencil to paper, marking down contacts that belonged to civilian shipping lanes. Nothing demanded attention. Nothing hinted at the kind of story that outruns official reports, and that a subtle change entered the boat so subtle it might have been imagined if not for 3 men noticing it at once. It began with the temperature. Ortiz glanced at the readout and frowned. That can't be right, he muttered. A narrow thermal spike appeared in a region of water known for stability. It wasn't wide enough to register on broader charts, but it was sharp, almost like a boundary. Hale leaned over his shoulder and saw it too. A line of heat cutting through cold water like a scar. The captain was informed, more out of duty than alarm. A single anomaly was common at sea, but they had no time to dismiss it before the second shift appeared. The boat's compass drifted. Not a malfunction, not a shudder, but a deliberate slide at 10 degrees east. Then a slow crawl back. Magnetic interference, the engineering chief called it at first. Yet the ocean floor beneath them was clean. No deposits, no fields, nothing known that could drag the compass off course. The atmosphere shifted. The men stood straighter. The silence thickened. The captain ordered a full diagnostic. Nothing explained the deviation. But the moment that turned unease into something heavier came from sonar. Ortiz tapped the screen. Hard. Twice. A contact large. Defined. Unmistakable. Had been moving parallel to them for almost an hour. A small ship by size. Too steady to be debris. Too large to be wildlife. Too slow for a submarine. It held course. It held speed. Then without warning, it blinked out. No fading. No drifting. No interference. Just gone. The sonar room felt so quiet that the crew could hear their own heartbeat. Hale leaned closer, almost whispering. Did it just drop? Ortiz didn't answer. He kept staring at the blank spot where the contact had been. The captain arrived minutes later. Demanded playback, demanded analysis, demanded someone explain how an object hundreds of meters long could disappear in open water. Ortiz played the tape. The blank spot stared back. There was a moment then brief, but unforgettable, when every man in the room sensed something pressing against the hull. Not a sound, not a vibration, more like awareness, as if the submarine itself was being examined from the outside. No one admitted feeling it at the time. Later, they all did. Night fell above the surface, though time meant little underwater. The crew grew restless, their jokes thin, their breathing controlled. They trusted procedure. They trusted logic. But something about that vanished object whispered that they were crossing into waters that didn't care about either. At 00 hours, Hale noticed something else. The ocean around them grew unnaturally still. No current drift, no ambient echo. The sea was always alive with sound, even at depth. But this was silence, absolute silence. As if they had entered a void. He reported it. The captain stared at him, weighing whether to treat this as another anomaly or as a growing pattern. Before he could decide, the light shivered, only for a breath, a flicker, then normal. But every man on that boat felt the same cold truth. The ocean outside was no longer acting like an ocean. Morning brought no relief. The submarine pressed deeper, moving cautiously, threading through invisible tension. Ortiz caught fragments on sonar, half shapes, impressions, echoes that returned incomplete, as if something was close, but its outline refused to form. At one point, a faint metallic tapping echoed through the hull. Barely audible. 2 short knocks. A pause, then another. The pattern wasn't natural. It wasn't random, and it didn't come from inside. The captain ordered full stop. The engines quieted. The tapping ceased. They waited. In the stale, recycled air, even breathing felt loud. Then without warning, the water outside shifted. The submarine felt as if it slid sideways, though no current should have existed at this depth. The navigation readings twitched. Hale steadied himself against the console. What was that? Someone whispered, but no one had an answer. When the engines resumed, nothing worked quite the same. Readouts lagged. Sonar returned echoes with slight delays. Hale recalculated their coordinates 3 times and still couldn't explain the drift. They were still on mission, still submerged, still operational, and yet they were no longer where they were supposed to be. The captain quietly ordered a sealed log entry. That alone told the crew how serious things had become. Sealed logs were for incidents that demanded classification, incidents that could challenge a career, incidents only a handful of officials would ever read. As they pressed on, the sense of being watched returned. Ortiz leaned toward his console and whispered to Hale without looking up, "Something's pacing us." Hale's stomach tightened. "Show me." Ortiz didn't move. "It's not on the screen." The silence stretched. Something unseen, something untracked. Something following. Hours later, a faint vibration ran along the hull, like a single finger dragging over steel. The temperature spike returned. The compass pulled again, and the void-like silence outside deepened until even sonar felt blind. They were entering something. And then came the moment no one would ever erase from memory. Not in the mess hall later, not in private interviews years after retirement, not even in nightmares. A narrow band of water ahead shimmered on sonar, not visually, only electronically. A distortion like a doorway, a threshold only instruments could sense. As the submarine crossed into it, the lights dimmed once more. The hull groaned. Every meter felt wrong. Every sound inside shifted pitch. The men braced themselves involuntarily, though none could explain why. It lasted 11 seconds. When they exited the band, Hale checked the coordinates again. His breath caught. They had moved almost 3 kilometers. Sideways. No current could account for it. No error could approximate it. They had shifted through water in a way the ocean did not allow. Before anyone could process it, Ortiz whispered, voice trembling for the first time, "Sir, there's something behind us." The sonar screen lit with a faint, pulsing shadow. Not solid, not shaped, more like an outline that flickered as if trying to form. Then it vanished. The captain stared at the empty green glow, jaw clenched, whispering words he didn't intend for anyone to hear. "What followed us through?" The question hung in the stale air, unanswered. And in the silence that followed, the tapping returned. 3 soft knocks, closer this time. The crew froze. Whatever was out there had crossed the threshold with them, and it wasn't finished. Inside the threshold there are moments at sea when even the toughest crews stop pretending. They understand the world around them. Moments when training, logic, and doctrine fall silent, leaving only instinct to speak. The submarine had crossed that line. Every man on board felt it, even if none dared to say it aloud. The tapping on the hull faded as quickly as it began. 3 knocks, then nothing. No one breathed for several seconds, as if air itself might provoke whatever pressed against the steel. The captain ordered reduced speed, his voice steady but tight, the kind of controlled tone officers use when they're suppressing fear for the sake of the crew. For a few minutes, the boat moved through water that felt strangely thick, almost heavy, as though forcing its way through a slow, invisible current. Hale kept his hand on the navigation rail, feeling tiny vibrations ripple through the metal beneath his palm. The ship wasn't just moving forward, it felt like it was being nudged, redirected, pushed along an unseen path. Ortiz stared at sonar with unblinking focus. Green lines glowed softly across his face, casting shadows under his eyes. "I'm getting reflections," he murmured. "Contacts?" The captain asked. "Not exactly. These aren't objects. More like shapes without mass, echoes without sources." He swallowed. "It's like sonar doesn't know what it's hearing." The room darkened as the submarine dipped deeper. The hum of the engines became a low, distant rumble. Somewhere in the bow, a faint metallic groan traveled along the hull. Every man heard it. No one commented. 30 minutes passed with only murmured reports and the constant thrum of recycled air. Then something changed. The water outside grew warmer. Not gradually, but abruptly, another narrow band of heat like the one they had crossed earlier. The temperature spike hit their instruments, then faded just as fast. The captain scanned the data. "We're moving through layers that don't belong here." Hale nodded slowly, like crossing thresholds. The word hung there, heavy and unspoken in its implications. Before anyone could unpack it, the lights flickered again, this time longer. A low ripple rolled across the hull, like distant thunder muffled by miles of water. Men steadied themselves. One crewman muttered a prayer under his breath. Then the submarine lurched. It wasn't violent. It wasn't sharp. It felt more like the ocean swallowed the boat whole for a heartbeat and spat it out somewhere else. Hale's stomach tightened. His instruments jittered, then froze, then blinked back to life. He stared at the numbers. No, that's not right. What is it?" the captain asked. "We drifted again. More than before." "How far?" "Nearly 5 kilometers. Silence pulled around them. 5 kilometers in less than a second. No current on Earth could move a submarine like that. Not at depth. Not anywhere. As they absorbed the impossible shift, Ortiz's voice cut through the silence. "Sir, something's ahead." The sonar screen pulsed with a faint contour, elongated, irregular, but undeniably present. It hovered in the darkness like a ghost waiting for recognition. "What does it look like?" the captain asked. Ortiz hesitated, his fingers trembling slightly. "Like a corridor." The word hit the room like a drop in still water, sending invisible ripples through every man present. The captain stepped closer. "Distance? 200 meters. Nature?" Ortiz swallowed hard. "Unknown." The boat slowed. The shadowed shape on sonar remained fixed, heartbeat steady, like a doorway waiting for them to approach. Hale felt cold sweat dampen the back of his neck. "Bring us to 100 meters. The captain ordered. The sub crept forward, each meter a taut thread dragging them toward something none of them had the language to describe. As they approached, the readings grew stranger. Sound bounced back late, as if traveling through thicker water. The hull shuddered lightly, as though brushing against a soft, unseen pressure. Then the corridor pulsed. It wasn't a visual pulse, not one they could see. It was a shift of pressure wave, a vibration, something primal and mechanical all at once. The men felt it in their bones, like an ancient echo resonating through the hull. A heartbeat later, every instrument flickered again. The captain stiffened, pulled back. Now, but before the pilot could react, the submarine drifted several meters forward without propulsion. As if pushed, Ortiz's voice cracked. "We're being pulled in." The corridor loomed in sonar, growing larger, more defined. The walls of the shape seemed to shimmer, changing density, shifting edges. Hale stared at the screen, breath shallow. "It's not rock. It's not metal. It's not anything solid." The corridor narrowed. Sonar returned an impossible reading, as if the walls curved inward, embracing the submarine. "We're crossing something," Hale whispered. The men braced as the submarine slid through. For 2 seconds, the world outside ceased to exist. No sound, no echoes, no readings. Empty. Then reality snapped back. The submarine burst into open water again, deep, dark, and eerily quiet. Ortiz stared at the sonar, eyes wide. "Sir, it's gone." The corridor, the shape, everything. "There's nothing here." Hale checked their coordinates. His hands trembled. We're not where we were. We've moved again. How far? Almost 9 kilometers. The captain stared at the ceiling, jaw clenched. He wasn't praying. He was calculating, trying to make sense of something that refused to fit into any naval manual. The crew exchanged quiet, frightened glances. One man crossed himself. Another gripped the edge of a console until his knuckles turned pale. Then a new sound cut through the tension, a hollow, resonant thud. Not tapping, not mechanical strain. Something hitting the hole from the outside. One thud. Silence. Another. Silence. A third much louder dot. The men froze. Ortiz's voice cracked again. Captain, something's behind us. Hale looked over his shoulder, almost expecting to see a shadow forming in the narrow corridors. On sonar, a faint outline pulsed larger than before, clearer, no longer shapeless, and it was following them. The captain whispered the 2 words everyone feared: increased depth. The boat descended. The shadow followed. Changed course. The boat veered. The shadow followed. It mirrored every move. Hale felt his throat tighten. Sir, it knows we're trying to get away. Ortiz leaned closer to the screen. No, it's not chasing us. It's studying us. The word chilled the air like a cold draft through steel. They moved deeper still. The hull moaned under the pressure. The shadow kept pace, shifting in form, fading in and out, as though slipping through dimensions the crew couldn't see. Then without warning it vanished again. The sonar went blank. The room exhaled shakily. The captain nodded, relieved. Hold depth. Maintain course. But before Hale could confirm the order, Ortiz whispered one final sentence that drained the color from every face. Sir. It didn't disappear. He slowly turned his head toward the hull. It's inside the blind zone. The blind zone. The one place sonar couldn't read. The one place close enough to touch. Every man in the room went still. From somewhere deep in the submarine's frame, a slow scrape echoed softly along the steel. Not tapping. Not distant. A drag. A presence. Moving along the hull. Searching. And then it stopped. Right beside the control room. The lights flickered, and the hull whispered. Other boats. Same shadows whisper along the hull didn't sound like metal stress or shifting currents. It carried intention, as if something brushed the submarine with curiosity rather than force. Every man who heard it went pale. Even the captain froze, one hand hovering above the console, the other gripping the edge of the chart table for balance. Then the whisper faded, not outward, downward, as if whatever had touched them simply sank into deeper water, settling into a place sonar couldn't reach for the first time on the patrol. The silence inside the control room felt heavier than the ocean outside. The captain cleared his throat. Resume standard depth. Hale hesitated. Sir, if we move, I know, the captain replied quietly. But staying still is worse. The sub inched forward, its movement cautious, like a creature afraid to disturb something sleeping. Men kept glancing at the hull, half expecting the whisper to return. But minutes passed with no sound, no pulses, nothing. Just deep, endless water. Ortiz leaned into his console, watching the sonar like a man staring at a door that might burst open. Still no contact. Whatever it was, it's gone. Hale didn't believe it. None of them did. The ocean felt different now, to calm, to controlled, as if something had taken the freedom out of the water. The captain adjusted his cap, exhaled, and said, Listen carefully. This isn't the first time something like this has happened. The crew stared at him. You mean anomalies, sir? Hale asked. No, the captain said. I mean this. His eyes flicked to the hull, then to the dead space behind sonar's blind zone. Ortiz swallowed. Sir, how many times? Enough that the Navy has procedures for reporting them without ever naming them. Hale stepped closer. You're talking about those sealed incident logs. The captain didn't deny it. Other boats have seen corridors, shapes, things that don't behave like water or metal or anything we know. He paused, but they never described the same thing twice. The room fell still again. What about disappearances? Ortiz asked. The captain's expression shifted. Those reports are harder to track. They show up as lost contact, equipment failure, unknown sinking, but unofficially. He lowered his voice. Yes, some boats entered strange waters and didn't come back. A chill ran along Hale's spine. Are we in the same region? No, the captain said. These places appear where they shouldn't. They don't follow maps. They don't stay in one spot. His voice softened. And they don't always look the same. The men exchanged uneasy glances. There was something profoundly unsettling about the idea that the ocean itself might rearrange its hidden places like shifting rooms in a house no one built. The captain turned to Ortiz, pull up long-range hydrophone logs, cross-reference anything with unexplained distortions. Ortiz nodded and began tapping keys. Lines of data rippled across the screen. One file stood out immediately, a recording from a foreign submarine, old, heavily degraded. The hydrophone had captured low-frequency groans and a faint rumbling. Then something else, a single whisper, barely audible, in a language no operator could identify. Hale leaned closer. Where was this recorded? Ortiz checked the tag. Northern Atlantic. Classified surveillance lane. That's nowhere near here, Hale whispered. And yet it's the same sound, the captain said. He didn't explain how he knew. He didn't need to dot. Another file came up, this one more recent, marked with a redacted origin. Its transcript noted strange acoustic shadows that shifted like moving walls. The shape described looked eerily like the corridor they had passed through. Ortiz's voice dropped to a whisper. Sir, how many boats have reported that? Only two officially. The captain hesitated. Unofficially? More. The last file loaded without prompting. The crew stiffened as they watched the sonar screen from another patrol, their sister boat. Same model, similar route, 2 years earlier. The recording began normally, then the screen flickered with a shape that pulsed at the edges, almost identical to the shadow following them earlier. The recorder froze at the moment the shape merged with the blind zone. The file ended abruptly. Did that boat return? Hale asked. The captain didn't answer right away. It resurfaced, he finally said. But the crew's statements didn't match. Timelines were off. Equipment logs were incomplete. Some men couldn't recall the entire patrol. Others remembered too much. Contradictions everywhere. Anything like what we've seen? Ortiz asked. One officer reported tapping on the hull. Another described a shimmer in the water. And one man said he heard voices. The word dropped into the room like a lead weight. Hale felt the back of his neck prickle. They heard actual voices? Whispers, the captain corrected. Faint, incomprehensible, and only after crossing something they described as a threshold. The room felt so quiet that the hum of the air system felt deafening. Hale's pulse quickened. Sir, whatever we went through, it's not random. These events have patterns, repeated elements. Ortiz nodded slowly. Temperature spikes, magnetic drift, something pacing the ship, a corridor-shaped anomaly. He paused, and something crossing with them, a low vibration suddenly tremored along the hull, faint, distant, like a memory repeating itself. The men froze. Ortiz's eyes widened, and his hands hovered above the console. Not sonar, he whispered. Not from outside. Hale blinked. Then where? Ortiz looked at the deck beneath them. The vibration swelled. Not violently, just enough to make the tools on a nearby tray tremble. The captain's voice dropped to a near murmur. Something's moving inside the hull cavity. Hale felt eyes run through him. Inside? That's impossible. Ortiz didn't look away from the floor. So was drifting 9 kilometers sideways. The submarine groaned. Not from pressure. From weight. As if something was shifting inside the metal layers of the ship's body. The captain gripped the railing. All compartments status check. They waited. Voices came through one by one. Engineering. Torpedo room. Berthing. All. Clear. Until one voice didn't respond. Communications. Try. Again. The captain ordered. Silence. A second. Attempt. Silence. Hale stepped back. That's impossible. The comms officer is always at his station. The hull trembled again. This time closer to the control room. A scrape. A breath. A soft distortion rolling through the steel. Then the intercom crackled, weak, distorted, like a voice speaking through layers of water. Sir, you need to see. The signal cut. The captain's face tightened. Hale, Ortiz, you're with me. They moved fast, pushing down the narrow corridor lit only by dim red emergency bulbs. Each step echoed just slightly too loud, like the submarine was hollowing itself out with every vibration. As they approached the communications room, the air grew colder. The temperature drop was subtle, but real. Drops of condensation clung to the metal walls. Hale reached for the hatch handle. Wait. The captain whispered. Something moved inside the room. A faint shift of weight. A quiet exhale. Not human. The captain nodded. Hale opened the hatch. The room was empty. Completely empty. The chair spun slowly, as if someone had just stood from it. Papers lay scattered across the floor. The microphone buzzed weakly, but there was no comms officer. Ortiz stepped inside. He was here 10 minutes ago. Hale scanned the corners. No exit points. No vents large enough. No reason he'd leave. Then he stopped. On the far wall, the metal was warm. Warmer than human touch. A narrow band, the shape of a palm, but in reverse as if heat had pressed outward from inside the steel. Ortiz's breast shook. Sir, something came through the hole. The captain's jaw clenched, and it took him. A sudden metallic clatter echoed from the far end of the corridor. A shifting shape, a sliding sound. Whatever had crossed with them was no longer outside. It was moving through the submarine dot, and it wasn't done. What the files refused to say corridor outside the communications room felt tighter than before, as if the submarine itself were shrinking around them. The captain closed the hatch quietly, not to seal something out, but to keep the emptiness inside from following them. Hale could still feel warmth radiating from the wall inside the reverse handprint. That didn't belong to anything living aboard the boat. Ortiz kept looking back over his shoulder as they walked. Sir, what if the comms officer didn't leave? What if he was pulled through? Hale answered before the captain could. Steel doesn't open like that. Ortiz's voice shook. Not steel. Not water. Not anything we understand. The captain didn't argue. He simply led them back to the control room with a pace that revealed more urgency. Then he allowed into his tone. Inside, the crew waited, tense and pale. Their eyes darted between the officers and the panels, as if expecting the instruments to betray them again. The hum of machinery had changed too subtly, but enough to feel like the submarine was breathing a little too fast. The captain addressed them without raising his voice. We have a missing crewman. No alarms, no breach. I don't want panic. We will perform controlled compartment sweeps. No one questioned how a man could vanish without a sound. Hale kept his gaze on the sonar. The screen was clear. Too clear. The ocean outside had returned to that unnatural stillness. No currents, no drift, no life. It reminded him of the seconds inside the corridor empty water that felt wrong to the bones. Ortiz swallowed. Sir, if that thing is inside with us, sonar won't help. We'll rely on internal sensors, the captain said. The lighting dimmed again before anyone could move. A thin tremor ran through the hull, almost like something brushing its length from stern to bow. Hale felt it pass beneath his boots. A crawling sensation that made him grip the rail to stay steady. Then the light steadied, and the tremor faded. The captain motioned for Hale to follow him into the chart room. The door closed softly behind them. The small space felt even smaller with the weight of what neither of them wanted to admit. Hale, the captain said quietly, I need you to hear the truth before you see it in the files. Hale stiffened. There were 3 documented cases before the one we reviewed earlier. The captain continued. 3 submarines, 3 disappearances. All survived the patrol, at least initially. What happened afterward? Hale asked. The captain rested both hands on the table. The crews didn't. He paused. Not fully. Hale's breath caught. Sir, what does that mean? One crew refused to speak at all. Complete silence. They were discharged, quarantined. Their statements were unusable because they never made them. And the others? The captain's eyes hardened. They talked about shadows moving through compartments. Missing time. Men who vanished for minutes and returned with no memory. And all 3 boats reported heat signatures appearing inside the hull. Just like we saw. Hale's skin tightened. Why wasn't this in the standard training files? Because even the Navy doesn't know what to call it. The captain said, there is no doctrine, no procedure, only speculation. What kind of speculation? The captain hesitated before answering. Some believe the ocean holds pockets where physics bends. Some think these are natural phenomena we haven't studied. Others, he exhaled slowly. Others think something exists in those pockets. Something that moves when we enter its space. Hale lowered his voice. Something alive? Alive doesn't quite describe it. The captain said. Responsive, maybe intentional. Something that reacts to us, but isn't shaped like anything we know. Before Hale could respond, an alarm chirped a soft, uncertain tone. As though even the system wasn't sure what it detected, both men rushed back into the control room. One of the junior sailors pointed at the environmental panel. Sir, temperature spike. Compartment C3. Hale blinked. That was the berthing area. The captain moved fast. Lock it down. Hale, Ortiz, with me. The corridor felt colder this time. As they approached C3, the temperature climbed abruptly warm, humid, unnatural. The air smelled off. Not rotten. Not chemical. Just different. The captain opened the hatch. The berthing compartment was empty. Bunks made. Lockers sealed. Nothing out of place, except for the heat dot it radiated from the far bulkhead like a breathing furnace. Ortiz held up a sensor. Sir, it's localized. 1 square meter. The captain stepped closer. Hale grabbed his sleeve. Sir, don't touch it. I'm not planning to, the captain said. Ortiz frowned at the readings. It's increasing. Hale stared at the glowing numbers. Something's forming? No, Ortiz said. Something just left. Before they could absorb the implication, a metallic crash echoed from the next compartment. The captain spun. Move. They sprinted into the torpedo room. Tools scattered across the deck, rolling slowly from some unseen shift. A storage locker hung open, swinging gently as if someone had passed through seconds earlier. And in the center of the room, kneeling on the floor, was the comms officer. Alive. But wrong. His uniform was soaked with seawater. His eyes stared forward, unfocused. His hands trembled with small spasms. Hale knelt beside him. Hey, listen to me. You're back. You're safe. The comms officer raised his head with difficulty. His lips parted. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded like it came from far underwater. I saw it. Hale's chest tightened. Saw what? The man blinked slowly. The place where the water bends. Ortiz shuddered. What does that mean? The comms officer shook his head weakly. Not water. Not air. Not. Here. The captain crouched beside them. How did you get out of the compartment? The man's trembling intensified. It wasn't a compartment anymore. The lights flickered overhead. The hum of the engines dropped for a moment, then rose again. A low resonance rolled through the steel beneath their feet. The comms officer's breathing slowed. He leaned forward and whispered something only Hale could hear. It followed us. Hale froze. Before he could respond, the man collapsed, unconscious. The captain straightened, face grim. Medical bay, now. Hale and Ortiz lifted the comms officer. As they carried him into the corridor, Hale glanced back into the torpedo room and stopped. A patch of the bulkhead behind the open locker glowed faintly. A soft, pulsing warmth. The exact same shape they'd seen in the comms room. It hadn't just taken him. It had put him back. Ortiz looked at Hale. Sir, what kind of thing returns a man only after changing him? Hale couldn't speak, because something else caught his eye. The glowing patch dimmed, faded, disappeared, and as it vanished, a low whisper slid along the hull outside. Traveling toward the bow, slow, purposeful, the captain whispered the words that all felt. It's not finished moving, and somewhere ahead of them. The submarine answered with a hollow, echoing knock 3 times. As if calling them forward. Portals of water. Portals of mine. 3 hollow knocks echoed through the bow like an invitation no one wanted to accept. The sound traveled across the submarine's ribs, through the floor plates, through the hearts of the men standing frozen in the corridor. It felt deliberate, not a warning, not an attack, something closer to a summons. Hale watched the captain's expression tighten. The man wasn't scared, not visibly, but there was a strain around his eyes. The look of someone trying to keep a crew steady while his own instincts screamed that the ocean had shifted into something unnatural. They carried the comms officer to the medical bay. His breathing was shallow, like each inhale passed through water. A medic placed him on the narrow cot, checking pulse, checking pupils, checking for the kind of injuries a normal submarine could inflict. But nothing made sense. His vitals were erratic, his skin temperature fluctuated, and at one point his heartbeat doubled, then slowed to near sleep, all within 30 seconds. The medic stepped back. Sir, I've never seen readings change like this. The captain didn't answer. He was staring at the comms officer's hand, the one that had left that reverse heat print on the wall. The skin looked normal, but faint tremors kept rippling through the fingers. Hale leaned close. You think he brought something back? The captain didn't deny it. I think something used him as a weigh-in. Before Hale could respond, the comms officer's eyes snapped open, wide, fixated, but staring at nothing in the room. Hale leaned forward. Hey, can you hear me? The comms officer blinked once, slowly, as if the motion belonged to someone else. Then his lips parted. It wants the bow. The medic stepped back. What wants the bow? The man didn't blink. His pupils dilated like he was staring into a bright light no one else could see. You were inside it, he whispered, and now it wants inside you. The captain placed a firm hand on his shoulder. What is it? The comms officer swallowed with effort. Not a creature. Not alive the way we are. His breathing shallow. It doesn't see the submarine. It sees doors. Hale's voice was low. Doors, rooms, layers, places to move through. A pause. Places to hide. The temperature dipped. The lights flickered. Another tremor ran through the hull, this one softer, almost gentle. The comms officer's head snapped toward the door. It's already leaving this room. Hale turned instinctively, staring into the hallway. Nothing there, but the air felt different, like someone had stepped through just before they looked. The captain moved first, back to control. Now, they followed him through tight corridors, the hum of the submarine sounding uneven, as though parts of the ship were breathing out of sync. Men in the passageway stiffened as they passed. No one asked questions. They didn't need to. By the time they reached the control room, the atmosphere had shifted. The crew looked rattled, eyes wide, hands stiff. The environmental panel flickered with temperature readings jumping between cold spikes and sudden heat blooms. Sonar returned soft, incomplete echoes not of objects, but of empty water shaped wrong. Ortiz didn't look up as he spoke. "Sir, we picked up something on the forward hydrophones." Hale leaned in. "Contact." "Not exactly." Ortiz pressed a key and a low murmur filled the room. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't geological. It sounded almost like moving water, but layered, twisting, with structures that rose and fell like breaths. "It's ahead of us," Ortiz said. "Not far." The captain pulled up the navigation chart. Their submarine drifted slightly, not enough to register as movement, but enough to suggest the ocean was no longer passive beneath them. Hale frowned. "Sir, what's directly in front of us?" Ortiz tapped the sonar map. "Nothing, just open water." The hum returned louder, closer. The captain steadied himself. "Bring us to 20 meters forward." Slow. Hale hesitated. "Sir, if we're heading toward the same thing that took him, we need to see it coming." The captain said. "Not let it circle us blind." The sub crept ahead. 10 meters. 15. Then the lights dimmed again. This time they didn't flicker back on immediately. The control room glowed with emergency red, casting hollow shadows across the panels and the men who stood frozen around them. The hum outside faded into near silence. Hale felt the pressure shift, like stepping into a room where something had been waiting. Ortiz's voice broke the quiet. "Sir, sonar detects a structure." Hale's chest tightened. "Structure? At this depth?" "Not solid," Ortiz whispered, "but shaped." The captain leaned over the screen. There was a long, curved outline arched like a doorway suspended in the water directly ahead. It wasn't a corridor like before. This was different, broader, taller, and faint pulses radiated from its edges, like ripples on the surface of a pond. No ocean phenomenon behaved like that. Hale swallowed. "Sir, is it active?" Before the captain could reply, the hydrophones erupted with a deep, resonant vibration. The structure pulsed. The submarine shuddered. Panels buzzed with static. Then something else happened, quiet, subtle, chilling. A whisper slid through the control room. Not through the hull. Through the air. A voice, just one, speaking from somewhere impossibly close. Hale froze. "Did anyone else hear?" "Yes," Ortiz whispered. It sounded like he didn't finish, because the whisper came again, this time clearer, 2 syllables. A word none of them recognized, but the tone carried meaning, and the meaning was undeniable. The structure ahead pulsed again, glowing faintly on sonar. The comms officer's voice crackled suddenly through the intercom, weak, distant, as if he were speaking from far underwater. "It sees you." Hale felt his heartbeat spike. "What sees us?" The man's voice trembled. "The place, the room, the part of the ocean that isn't ocean." The captain stepped forward, eyes locked on the shimmering outline ahead. "Is this where it came from?" There was a pause. Then the comms officer whispered, "No, this is where it wants to go next." Hale turned sharply. "Next? Next what?" But the intercom went silent. The structure ahead brightened on sonar, one long pulse, like a heartbeat answering the submarine's intrusion. Then the hum rose outside, deep, vibrating, almost melodic. Something was opening. The captain inhaled slowly. All stations brace. The submarine drifted, unpowered now, drawn forward by a force no instrument could quantify. The structure pulsed again, brighter, clearer, and for a brief second, just long enough to raise every hair on every man's neck. The water ahead seemed to bend. As if forming a doorway, a threshold. A portal. Hale stared, unable to look away. "Sir, what if this isn't a place?" The captain's eyes narrowed. "What then?" Hale swallowed hard. "What if it's a direction?" The structure pulsed one final time, and the submarine surged forward straight into the unknown.